I've always believed that a man's life can be traced along a line of accidental moments. Tiny collisions with fate that reshuffle everything he thinks he knows about himself. If you asked me what the turning point of my life was, I wouldn't tell you it was the day I got my first real job, or the night I stood up for myself in a bar outside of Boston, or even the year my father died and left me with more questions than memories. No, my turning point was the moment she walked into the dim little cafe where I was pretending to read a book I barely understood. I remember the exact sound the door made. A soft thud followed by the faint chime of a bell, like the scene had been rehearsed 1,000 times. I looked up only because the wind that rushed in carried a hint of jasmine, unfamiliar but comforting in a way I couldn't explain. And there she was, shaking the rain from her hair, her coat oversized and her cheeks flushed pink from the cold. Some people step into your life the way dawn creeps up on a city. Quiet, gradual, unnoticed until the sunlight hits your face. But she entered mine like a comet. Bright, intrusive, impossible to ignore. She glanced around the room, searching for a place to sit. The cafe was nearly full, and before my brain had time to warn me or protect me or do any of the things it usually did to keep me out of trouble, I raised my hand as if I were calling her over with a spell. "You can sit here," I said. I surprised myself with the steadiness of my voice. She smiled, just a slight curve, but enough to anchor itself in the deepest part of me. "Thank you," she said, sliding into the seat opposite mine. Her voice was calm, unhurried, a voice that knew its own rhythm. Her name was Evelyn. It fit her the way music fits silence. I sometimes think people don't fall in love all at once. Instead, love builds itself out of small moments stacked quietly on top of each other until you look up one day and realize the structure is higher than you can climb down from. With Evelyn, the moments accumulated fast. There was the time she laughed at something I said, not politely, not the way people laugh when they want you to feel comfortable, but the kind of laugh that shakes the table and makes strangers look over. A real laugh, the kind that makes a man feel like he has discovered fire. There was the time we walked by the river at night. The city lights stretched across the water like molten gold, and she kept pausing just to close her eyes and listen to the sound of the current. "The river carries stories," she said. "Old ones people forgot to finish." I didn't know then, but she had this talent for turning ordinary moments into something mythic. If she pointed at a cracked sidewalk, suddenly it held secrets. If she looked at the sky, the clouds rearranged themselves into messages I wished I understood. And there was the morning she asked, out of nowhere, "What do you fear the most?" I told her the truth, being forgettable. She didn't answer right away. She just reached out, placed her hand over mine, and said, "Then let's write a story no one could forget." Love, I learned, is not grand declarations or perfect timing. It is the quiet threads that connect two people, binding them long before they notice. It is every unspoken understanding, every half-finished sentence the other person knows how to complete. But love also carries shadows. The first shadow appeared on a Thursday. We were sitting on my apartment floor, eating takeout from paper boxes, when she fell silent mid-sentence. Her gaze drifted somewhere far away, as if she were listening to music only she could hear. "You okay?" I asked. She blinked quickly, then smiled too quickly. "Of course. Sorry. My mind just wandered." It happened again 2 days later, and again the week after. I started noticing the way her hands trembled when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she'd stare at her phone like it held some invisible threat. Then came the night she finally told me the truth. We were standing on the rooftop of my building, watching the city smear itself into constellations of neon. She was unusually quiet, wrapped in one of my sweaters, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "I'm leaving," she said. The words slid into the air like ice. "For how long?" I asked. She pressed her lips together. "For, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe more." "Why?" She looked up at me with eyes full of storms. "Because sometimes love isn't enough to keep a person whole, and I'm trying to keep myself from falling apart." I wanted to tell her she didn't need to go, that I could help her, fix whatever was breaking inside her. But love taught me something else that night, something harder. Sometimes helping means letting go. She wrapped her arms around me then, and I felt how tightly she was holding on, as if she were trying to memorize the shape of me. I buried my face in her hair and inhaled deeply. Jasmine and rain and something I could never quite name. "Promise me one thing," she whispered. "Promise that you'll keep living. Don't wait for me in the shadows." I made the promise, because I loved her, because she asked. The day she left, the sky broke open and poured for hours. I walked her to the station anyway, our hands intertwined, our steps slow. Every raindrop felt like a countdown. When the train doors closed, she touched her fingertips to the glass, aligning them with mine. And even though she didn't say it aloud, I heard her voice in my head. "Wait for me, but live." The train pulled away, taking with it the brightest thing in my world. I won't lie and say the days after were easy. The silence in my apartment felt like a wound. The cafe where we met became harder to visit. Sometimes I thought I saw her in a crowd, her hair, her coat, her stride. But each time it was just a stranger wearing a ghost. Grief isn't loud. It whispers, curls around your ribs. It asks questions you don't know how to answer. But I remembered my promise. I kept living. I took a photography class. I traveled to places she once talked about. I learned to cook something other than pasta and eggs. I laughed again, eventually slowly, then fully. And then 1 year and 3 months after she left, I walked into that same dim cafe where our story began. The bell chimed. I didn't look up, not at first. The world had trained me not to hope recklessly. But then I heard a voice. Soft, familiar, a voice that knew its own rhythm. "Is this seat taken?" My heart forgot how to beat. I looked up. There she was, Evelyn. Her hair slightly longer, her eyes softer, carrying both the weight of the past and the light of something new. She looked like a woman who had fought her storms and survived. "No," I whispered. "It's not taken." She sat down, exhaled, smiled. "I came back," she said. "You did." She reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. The same gesture she'd done the first week we met, the gesture that had changed my life. "Are we too late?" she asked. I shook my head. No story is too late if the people in it still choose each other. Her smile trembled. I felt mine do the same. And in that small, ordinary cafe, we began again. Not rewriting the story, not pretending the pain hadn't happened, but continuing it with hands steadier and heart stronger. Because love is not about holding on perfectly. It's about returning braver, wiser, real. And she returned. And I loved her still. And the light she carried stayed.